Taiwan's opposition coalition debacle ends with two separate tickets going after the presidency. As the Israel Hamas hostage deal plays out, Bangkok watches on closely as Thais make up the largest group of foreign hostages held in Gaza. A film depicting Malaysia's dark past leads nominations at the 60th Golden Horse Awards. We speak to the director. Plus,
rickshaws have been plying the streets of Japan well over a century. Today we meet some rickshaw drivers to understand how this industry has been doing.
good evening. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Hameo Khan. Hopes for a joint presidential bid between Taiwan's two main opposition parties have come to a dramatic end, with Taiwan People's Party's Ko Wen-je registering on a solo ticket this morning. Joyce Tseng has the latest.
The recent chaos in Taiwan's local politics has all boiled down to this. The two main opposition parties will not form a joint ticket to go after the presidency in January's pivotal elections. Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je from the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, has just registered his bid in a single-party ticket, right on the day of the Election Commission deadline. He's pulled in U.S.-born Wu Xingying, or Cynthia Wu, as his running mate. She's a TPP lawmaker and former business exec, and hails from a family that runs one of Taiwan's biggest insurance groups. The pick may come as a surprise, as the party has really not discussed an alternative to a TPP-KMT coalition up until this point. There were some rumors of a potential alliance with Foxconn founder Terry Gou, but that also has not happened. Ke and his would-have-been alliance partner, Hou You-yi from the Kuomintang, or KMT, have both been individually polling behind the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's candidate, Lai Ching-te. After a messy will-they-won't-they back and forth, the potential for a more China-friendly opposition coalition collapsed after a bizarre last-minute press conference the night before the registration deadline, which saw Ke and Hou openly bicker on live TV, signaling frayed internal politics over who would yield to serve as the other's vice president, and little chance for resolve. The question now is whether the very public breakdown of the opposition coalition will hurt voter confidence for both the KMT and TPP. Now, the people are the ones to win over here, as Taiwan's top seat is secured by a first-past-the-post voting process. And with less than 2 months to go, it's crunch time for the opposition candidates to get their campaigns back on track in their own separate ways. Eason Chen and Joyce Tseng in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
While Ko and Wu were registering their ticket, the KMT revealed its nominee for vice president. Stash Butler reports from the party headquarters.
With just hours to the deadline, Hou You-yi, the presidential candidate for Taiwan's largest opposition party, the KMT, or Kuomintang, has registered for the January election alongside his pick for vice president. Media heavyweight Zhao Shaokang, a talk show host with huge influence in the party. Now, Zhao actually quit politics back in the 90s to pursue a successful media career. He explained today at the press conference why he's decided to quit that and return to politics.
但是因为现在情况真的不一样，我觉得真的是临危受命，救亡图存。我觉得国家面临到这样的情况，两岸面临这样的情况，我们的下一代面临这样的情况，真的是要救台湾，出来就是救台湾。
Now, Zhao's stepping in last minute comes after the spectacular collapse of a deal between Hou You-yi, the KMT's candidate, and another candidate, the former Taipei Mayor Ke Wen-je of the Taiwan People's Party, a deal between them to join on one ticket to unseat the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Now, after that deal has failed, it seems the KMT have chosen a rather different tactic. If joining with Ke was about appealing to the middle ground between the KMT and Taiwan's ruling DPP, then choosing Zhao Shaokang is about appealing to the KMT's base. He's a massive figure in the party. Like the rest of his party, favors stronger ties with China, but more broadly appeals to a KMT voter who remembers the Taiwan of 30 to 40 years ago, a time when the economy was booming, when Chinese identity was strong, and the KMT was in power. Now, that couldn't be in more stark contrast to the ruling party's candidate for Vice President Xiao Bi-kim, announced just this week. She's she's just left position as Taiwan's US envoy and is seen as close to Washington. Now, Xiao and the DPP's presidential pick Lai Ching-te are polling practically neck and neck with Hou Yu-ih and the KMT's campaign, two starkly different campaigns, both in with a chance of winning, with Taiwan's election just 7 weeks away. Lu Fili and Stash Butler in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Foxconn founder Terry Gou did not register to run in Taiwan's presidential election. The iPhone manufacturing billionaire had been set to run as an independent, gathering hundreds of thousands of signatures in a bid to get on the ballot. But his campaign faltered after China opened an investigation into Foxconn, with Gou making few public appearances in recent weeks. A last-minute attempt by Gou to broker an opposition alliance also failed. To find out more about the opposition's vice presidential candidate picks, reporter Rick Glauert spoke to Lev Nachman, a professor at National Zhengzi University.
Could you tell us about the new VP picks that have been announced today? Who are they?
So from the TPP, Ko-wen-je's vice presidential pick is Cynthia Wu. She's currently a legislator with the TPP. She comes from a very sort of wealthy background from the Xinguang group, which if you're in Taiwan, you've seen all the Xinguang Sanyue malls around the country. She herself is actually was originally a dual citizen in the United States, but gave up her citizenship when she joined the party list with the TPP back in 2020. So she is of the TPP establishment. I think she gives credibility for still relying on his own party, and I think that will most certainly help his base of support going forward. When it comes to Zhao Xiaokang for Hou Yu-ih, it's a very interesting choice because Zhao is kind of unabashedly pro-unification. He's been very outspoken about his views for a long time. He's even one of the founding members of Xindang, the very pro-unification political party here in Taiwan. So his selection as vice presidential candidate tells me that the KMT is, instead of trying to appeal to moderates, they're going back to their original deep blue base of support, with the hope that this really sort of rallies the KMT voter base around their candidate now.
So what do these new picks mean for the race?
I think for certain, it really puts a big pause on any sort of KMT-TPP cooperation when it comes to district races. I think a big question people have had is whether or not, even if presidential candidates don't cooperate, whether or not we'll see party cooperation kind of farther down the ballot. And these vice presidential candidates, I think, are so qualitatively different from each other in their politics that I think it's only going to make cooperation more difficult, especially combined with the spectacle that we saw yesterday. I think the idea of really any sort of blue-white cooperation is really going to be stalled.
And now we've got all of the, presidential pairings named. Could you tell us a little bit about how the race landscape looks and what people will be voting for, who they'll be choosing between?
So it's going to be really important to sort of follow public opinion for the next couple of weeks because it's going to tell us a couple of things. First, of course, how are these vice presidential candidates helping their respective campaigns, but also whether or not the debacle we saw yesterday is going to hurt Ke or Ho. Even though I think as international observers, we look at yesterday and we have a chuckle over just how messy that presser was, I think for their bases of support, they're still going to vote for those candidates. And I think we would be quick to assume, or we would be wrong to assume that their base of support will stop supporting them just because of yesterday. So I think it's important to really follow how public opinion changes over the next couple of weeks in combination with the vice presidential picks and yesterday's presser.
Police have busted 2 gambling rings trying to profit from Taiwan's upcoming elections. The 2 groups let people bet on questions including whether Taiwan's fractured opposition will form an alliance. The stings involved months of police work and dozens of officers, including some undercover posing as possible bettors. Gambling is illegal in Taiwan. A report by Taiwan's Weather Administration says the country's average temperature has been rising faster than the global average for the last 3 decades. The study gathered information from 13 weather stations around Taiwan. The results show temperatures in Taiwan increasing close to 0.3 degrees Celsius every decade since 1990, compared to a global increase of close to 0.2 degrees. The findings come a week after reports that 2023 is likely to be the world's hottest year on record. One film is leading this year's Golden Horse Awards with 9 nominations. It tells the story of one of Malaysia's most infamous tragedies through traditional Chinese opera. Our reporter Rhys Ayres jumps into Snow in Midsummer.
On May 13th, 1969, one of the most pivotal moments in modern Malaysian history unfolded on the streets of Kuala Lumpur. It was a bloody riot that left hundreds dead and the country in a state of emergency. The event, known today as the May 13 incident, lives on in the minds of many Malaysians, including film director Chong Keat Aun.
我从小就其实都听到513事件，尤其我的奶奶小时候她都会说，如果你不回家的话呢，513会杀掉你。所以我们从小就活在一种恐惧当中。
The riots came days after the 1969 general election, when 2 mostly ethnically Chinese opposition parties made significant gains on the ruling Malay coalition. It sparked ethnic violence, which official figures say led to 196 deaths.
只要大选一到，种族的议题就随时随地会变成一种被讨论的一个课题，因为毕竟种族议题被讨论的话呢，然后政客就很容易把它当成是一个把柄，来让选民特别害怕你不得不投他不可。
The story of Snow in Midsummer follows a mother and daughter who lose contact with the rest of their family amid the riots, and the daughter's attempts to face her family's tragic past 5 decades later. Chong draws inspiration from traditional Chinese opera for much of the story, visuals, and even the film's title.
传统的这个戏曲叫《六月雪》它其实是来自元代的杂剧非常古老的一个剧本。那窦娥说：“我是被冤枉的。那如果你们不信的话，你把我头砍下之后呢，天上就会下雪。因为那时候是6月嘛，6月是夏天，怎么会下雪呢？结果真的，他头被砍了之后呢，天空就下起了雪。当时候人家才知道，原来窦娥是被冤枉的。其实以前的戏剧其实是通过戏曲来批评，或者是对于当时候政治的一种不满。”
More than a love letter to theatre and film, Chong wants his movie to be a wake-up call for Malaysia. Drawing comparisons to Taiwan's own dark history, he highlights the importance of governments learning from the past.
很多国家其实已经对历史事件的一种认可，他们才能够走得更远。打个比方，像台湾台湾对于228事件到现在大家已经可以谈论了，甚至是官方已经有一定的说法了。可是马来西亚依然对这段历史还是避而不谈的。
Snow in Midsummer is currently screening in cinemas in Taiwan and has been nominated for 9 awards at the 60th Golden Horse Awards, including Best Cinematography, Best Director, and Best Narrative Feature. Justin Wu and Rhys Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
For more on the Golden Horse Awards and this year's nominees, search Golden Horse on the TaiwanPlus website. Coming up, we meet David Wei, Taiwan's only competitor for jiu-jitsu at the Asian Games in Hangzhou, China. Stay tuned to find out what it's like to be the national team.
Standing Strong, every Thursday, 10 a.m. on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A 4-day pause in fighting has begun in the Gaza Strip as part of a hostage deal between Israel and Hamas after 7 weeks of war. 13 Israeli hostages abducted on October 7 and 39 Palestinians held in Israeli prisons are expected to be released in a matter of hours. It's part of a deal that will see 50 Israeli hostages and 150 Palestinian prisoners freed over the 4-day break in hostilities. Convoys of trucks have now been allowed into Gaza through Egypt, carrying aid including food, water, medical essentials, and fuel. Both sides say the pause in fighting is temporary, but residents on the ground are hoping for a lasting ceasefire.
موضوع التهدئة يعني خلال 4 أيام يعني أجت صحيح متأخر كثير لأنه صار عندنا خسائر كثير وهذه يخلي الناس تشم نفسها وتقدر تتحرك وتدخل تشرب لأنه عندنا الوضع صعب وجميع كل أهل الشمال في رفح لا كان عندهم أكل ولا عندهم شرب ولا عندهم أي حاجة فهذا إن شاء الله تكون فرصة إنه الناس تقدر تتحرك وتعيش وممكن إن شاء الله تكون مقدم له تهدئة شاملة.
Now, Thailand is paying close attention to the Israel-Hamas hostage deal. Bangkok has a stake in the outcome as Thai nationals are the largest group of foreign hostages held by the militant group that controls the Gaza Strip. Joyce Zeng has more.
A 4-day pause in fighting in Gaza with the aim of freeing hostages. It's the first major diplomatic breakthrough since the war broke out after Hamas militants raided Israel on October 7th, taking over 200 hostages. 50 women and children are now set to be released in waves, the result of a deal brokered by Qatar, the US, and Egypt. And a country with a large stake in this is Thailand. Its citizens are the largest group of non-Israeli captives held by Hamas. The Thai government has been working with Iran and other regional governments to secure the safe release of nearly 24 Thai hostages held in Gaza.
ก็ได้ขอให้ท่านช่วยประสานนะครับในการที่จะเอาตัวประกันเนี่ยออกมาให้เร็วที่สุดนะครับซึ่งก็ได้รับการตอบรับดีมากแล้วเขาก็ยืนยันกับเรามาตลอดว่าอีกไม่นานก็จะมีข่าวดี
Although Thailand's foreign ministry did not confirm whether Thai nationals will be released in the deal, Bangkok says it's ready to receive them when they are. Thailand is one of Israel's largest sources of migrant labor, with some 30,000 Thai laborers working on the country's farms, thousands of whom were stationed near the Gaza border. Out of the 240 people taken hostage on October 7th, more than half are foreign or dual nationals from about 40 countries, with Thailand accounting for the largest single group.
In the past, Thailand had been much more supportive of the Palestinian cause. But as it developed a more solid relationship with Israel, who's looking for economic wins and economic investment, it has moderated its position even further.
Managing reactions to the war has been a tight balancing act for Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin, a political newcomer who's been in office less than 100 days. He's already worked to get thousands of Thais out of Israel, and while these efforts have been hailed as wins for the newly appointed government, bringing Thai hostages back home will be a closely watched test of its diplomatic prowess. Dolphine Chen and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
The rescue of 41 workers trapped in a collapsed tunnel in the Indian Himalayas has hit another setback. Authorities say they were in the final stretch of digging to free the men, but a damaged drilling machine has caused delays. They plan to insert pipes that will allow rescuers to pull those trapped to safety. The group has been struck underground for 12 days after a landslide caused the tunnel to collapse. Taiwan sent 94 athletes to the Asian Games in October, but only one, black belt David Wei, went to compete in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Our reporter Bryn Thomas hit the mats with him to find out what it takes to be the national team.
If you're part of Asia's Brazilian jiu-jitsu community, you've probably seen this guy. You might have even had the pleasure of fighting him. At 32, David is one of the best Taiwanese players in this sport. He represents Taiwan as part of a national team and is sometimes the only athlete from the country competing in jiu-jitsu events. That was the case at this year's Asian Games in Hangzhou, China, and it won't be the last time. For David, who has a family, a small business, and a job, flying the flag is both a privilege and a huge responsibility.
在赛前，我的心理是非常脆弱，而且我有很大的压力，因为这次中华队就只有我代表柔术这个项目去比赛，所以大家对我的期待非常深，希望我有好的表现。所以说，其实我都不是睡得太好，然后有时候也会影响到训练品质。
David failed to win a medal at the Asian Games, but he's still training hard for several upcoming matches. He's working with another Taiwanese black belt and former national team member, Justin Lin, to sharpen his skills. He trains 6 days a week, often twice a day, doing a mix of sparring drilling, stretching, and weightlifting. It's a no-quit attitude he's carried with him since the start of his career.
当我白带的时候，我没有在 tap 。我白带的时候，因为我就是很笨的那样，别人 choke 我就OK 就睡觉这样。我在比赛的时候人家安霸，我就觉得应该没事，我手就真的断掉了，你知道吗？我手就真的被折，啪，哇就受伤了，真的很痛，非常痛。我到那个时候我就开始真的想是说，哇，我真的要很注意我的身体，你知道吗？身体要跟我一辈子。
12 years later, and after a bit of physical therapy and over 100 competitions, David's now a black belt. He's married, owns a gym, and teaches classes in Taipei. Several afternoons a week, he hosts grapplers and coaches from other gyms for no-nonsense sparring here at iFighting.
David's like intensity and David's like effort and David's like mind and David's soul like elevate everybody here, and that's why I train here at iFighting with David, because he like elevate all of us.
It's a common sentiment amongst jiu-jitsu athletes in Taiwan. David's ability to juggle his family and financial responsibilities while training to compete at the highest levels stems from his role as a leader in Taipei's martial arts community. By competing with the national team, teaching, and sharing his experience, he hopes to blaze a trail for the country's youth.
让人家抽到中华队，觉得哇，我们都要中华队，这是一场不容易的比赛。有这种想法，然后我们可以有好的选手站上颁奖台。我要就是真的竞争非常激烈，然后台湾人站上1、2、3名，我觉得这是我想看到的。
David will insist that his successes in this sport were only possible because of the support he receives from his family, his coaches, and his teammates. He pays special attention to his youngest students while eyeing other opportunities to represent Taiwan.
我很努力在教我的后辈，一些白带、一些蓝带，甚至小朋友，我非常努力在教他们，因为我都可以预见他们现在这么努力，他们13岁，当他们18岁的时候，他们只要中间没有放弃的话，他们会变得非常厉害。那有一天，就是我们台湾选手就可以在世界舞台上被大家看到，这是我的想法，这是我现在想要做的事情。
If David's passion for the sport rubs off on even a few of Taiwan's younger athletes, the future of Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the country is sure to be bright. Andy Xue and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Taking in the sights of Tokyo on a rickshaw is a classic tourist experience, but the tourism industry only now recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Can rickshaws continue to hang on? Our reporter Sanichi was in Tokyo to find out.
Dashing down the streets of Tokyo to show the passengers the beauty of the city. Rickshaw pulling was invented in the 1860s in Japan as a cheap form of transport. Back then, the job was an easy entry into the Tokyo market for men newly moved to the city.
自分のしたことで笑顔にできたりとか、ありがとうって言ってもらえる。そういうのがやっぱすごく自分の今の毎日頑張るモチベーションになってる。
But the industry was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic.
人力車に乗ってくれました。ただ2020年、2021年とコロナが続いたので、その間に関してはもう僕らドライバー、車夫の方が観光に来ている人より多いんじゃないかってぐらい街は静かな状況の時もありました。
During the pandemic, rickshaw companies still managed to do business with a simple goal: to make their customers happy no matter how many they have. This is when more women started taking up the two-wheeled carts.
そうだ。お客さんで乗ったのがきっかけで、それからもともと人前に立つのが好きだったり、人を笑顔にするのが得意だったからです。
These new female pullers brought a new business. Many passengers feel they are more approachable.
ちょっと色が黒くてムキムキで少し怖い印象を与えることもあります。なのでそういった時に乗りたくてもちょっと怖いなって人はいらっしゃるんで、そういう時なんかはやっぱり女性の優しい感じとか、この細かいきめ細かいなんですかね、気づきだったりとかっていうところ。
They may have big smiles as they pull the carts, but the job is not as easy as it looks.
A rickshaw can weigh up to 250 kilograms with passengers on it, and for anyone, it is really hard to pull. These rickshaw drivers need to go at least 10 kilometers each day with passengers, and during peak seasons, they need to go further.
They pull this weight no matter the weather. In the summer heat and during wintry rain and snow, they work as long as it is safe to do so. And sometimes the passengers make their work even more stressful.
A lot of foreigners, they come to ride, and most of them, they have really good respect. Sometimes they think it's the rickshaw service. It's a car that human pulls. They think it's something else. We're not a taxi. We're not a horse. We're not a car.
Today, there are hundreds of rickshaw pullers hauling their passengers through Japan's streets. Hopefully, the industry is as resilient as they are, and tourists will be able to catch a ride on these human-powered vehicles for years to come. Kamashu and Sanichi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. You can visit the Taiwan Plus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, we leave you with the footage from the annual Thanksgiving parades around the United States. I'm Hamio Khan. Take care and see you next time.